Welcome back to Real America. Lately, I've been obsessed with how much of a surveillance state we've all opted into completely willingly. It's almost all I think about in those quiet moments alone in my house. But am I alone though? Is my TV watching me? My computer? My phone? My Peloton? Maybe some? Probably all. I wonder whether my daughter is going to grow up and be like, really? Really? You guys gave up on privacy so you could post duck face selfies and yell at each other on social media? Cool, mom. My husband, ever the voice of reason, thinks that it's more likely she won't even notice because it's the world she was born into, which is also kind of sad to me. Is Gen X and the elder millennials the last generation to remember what it was like to go somewhere and not have a device tracking you? Tonight, we're talking about parental surveillance and how far we're willing to go on monitoring our kids. Is it keeping them safer or is it actually harming them? This is Real America with me, Bridget Phetasy. Although, to be fair, I'm not sure my husband is the best judge because the first chance he has to put a chip in his wrist that opens his car door and pays for things and lets him know when he needs more water, he's opting in. In his mind, I know it's much cooler. It's a cyberpunk future where he's getting one from a street dock in a chop shop that's been stolen off the back of a truck of some mega corporation, and the data's been wiped so it's clean. My husband, the shadow runner living in the suburbs. I, on the other hand, refuse to even use Siri. This creates a funny dynamic for our daughter, who has one parent who uses his voice activation for her on demand requests, and me, who says, "You're going to listen to the whole album like I had to when I was a kid," while she yells at me to use Siri from her car seat. It's a strange time to be a parent. When we went to get rid of the child's Nanit, which is a fancy baby monitor, out of her room, she protested, which shocked me. "But how will mommy and daddy watch me?" she asked. I thought this was fascinating because I just assumed she would want her privacy. "What's that?" she said. Now, she's 3, so it's a fair question to ask what privacy is, but it made me realize she might never learn what it is unless we actively encouraged it and facilitated it. It feels, frankly, un American that the default is a population that's used to being monitored. We painted her room and got her a big girl bed, and she immediately was like, "Get it out of here. I'm a big girl now." So there's hope yet. We have to navigate the online world as much as the real world as parents, and it's changed the way we raise our kids. Offline, we're trying to give the kids more free range time. Online, we're trying to find ways to keep them away from the millions of ways people can now prey on our children. And now that AI has entered the chat, literally, there's even more fear around what our kids are up to online. Every generation has a general parenting philosophy. It doesn't matter what generation they are, parenting philosophies are unique to the times. Parents in the 40s and 50s tended to be strict and pragmatic because many of them were battered by war and economic failure. Dr. Spock ushered in a softer approach. In the 60s and 70s, parenting was a little looser, partly because of all the LSD Woodstock flashbacks, and also because the parents were reacting to their war torn greatest generation depression parents. In the 80s and 90s, the children of a generation of massive divorce began to helicopter their kids, probably overcompensating for the neglect they felt growing up. One thing is for sure, with each decade, parenting has gotten a little bit softer. We live in the era of gentle parenting now. Helicopter parenting has been replaced by surveillance parenting. I call it drone parenting. And we aren't that far from every kid having a drone or robot trailing behind them, just videotaping them all day. It has led to the rise of fearful parenting and the decline of unsupervised child directed play. Parents are anxious, for some for good reason, others not so much, but this anxiety has had some serious consequences. One reason parents today are stretched so thin is that they feel they must watch their kids all the time, either in person or by proxy, coach, nanny, teacher, or electronically, or all three. Jonathan Haidt has been ringing the sirens about this nonstop. He describes it as a culture of safetyism, where every kid is bubble boy, insulated from reality. Haidt also pointed out he's proven that social media is bad for everyone, but it does the most damage to kids. Surveillance parenting has crushed their independence and stunted their growth and given them all anxiety and depression. And they don't drink or have sex or have basically become dysfunctional. But then again, they're also getting depressed and anxious from unsupervised access to the online world. So we're in a bit of a pickle. There are some big counter movements to the culture of safetyism. Free range parenting is spreading. Policies like the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act are putting these ideas into practice. Schools are banning phones during the school day. Parents are getting their kids dumb phones or landlines and making them wait until they're 16 for a smartphone. But there is still a long way to go. And as someone who is at the beginning of this journey, it's not as easy as it looks. Self-surveillance is the norm these days, and we signed up for it. We played ourselves. We invited Big Brother into every part of our lives without even realizing it. We expected Big Brother to be harsh and annoying and over the top. Instead, we got friendly Big Brother. He sold us on Facebook and Instagram and iPhones and smart cars. He's in our Ring cameras and our car cameras and our Aura rings. As I write this monologue, a toilet camera that gives the user feedback on their poop is going viral. Now, while we are distracted, friendly Big Brother is merging with big business and big government to create probably the most terrifying surveillance state of all time, where nothing is sacred, not even our poop. Which begs the question, am I doing my daughter a disservice by not preparing her to be surveilled all the time? When I asked my husband this, he said, I don't think that you need to. She will be prepared. Which he's probably right about that too. Our guest tonight is the great Lenore Skenazy, founder of the Free Range Kids movement. She's brilliant, a genius. I adore her. She wrote the book Free Range Kids and serves as president of Let Grow, the nonprofit making it easy, normal, and legal to give kids back some independence. She gave a great TED Talk called Why You Should Spend Less Time with Your Kids that you should definitely check out. We'll put it in the description of this video. And before we get to Lenore, first, some quick housekeeping. If you want to be called on, you need to be on Zoom, on camera, and you need to virtually raise your hand by clicking the reactions button. If you aren't on Zoom and want to be a part of our virtual live audience right now or in the future, click the link in the description below, or to get the Zoom link, go to twoway.tv/Bridget Zoom. The Zoom link is the same link every time, so save it somewhere. It's your virtual bar. You can always find us here. The voice of God you're hearing is Cousin Maggie. Many of you already know her.
Hello, everyone.
She is my cousin, co-producer. We make a lot of stuff together, like our other shows, Dumpster Fire, Walk-Ins Welcome, and all the other content you can find at Phetasy.com. Maggie will be monitoring the chat. If you have something to say and you raise your hand, Maggie will message you privately, so look out for that to find out what you'd like to talk about, and she's going to help make sure that we stay on topic. We can't guarantee we'll get to everybody, but we do our best. Everyone knows my number one rule is just don't be a dick. So please treat the people in the chat the way you would if you were in person with them, free range, living your life. And now, a word from our sponsor, Quest. This time of year, heading into the holidays, I feel like so many people stop paying any attention to their health. You just kind of give it all up. Doctor's visits are a hassle and something no one wants to think about. Everyone's busy. That's why I love Quest. Quest simplifies the medical testing process significantly, especially if you're dealing with an HMO like I am. And it allows you to get the testing you need without a doctor's visit. Quest offers over 150 of the same tests trusted by doctors, including diagnostics for specific ailments like STDs, chronic conditions like heart, liver, and kidney disease, as well as testing that's almost never covered by health insurance like fertility and advanced women's hormone testing. Quest offers broad packages of tests that go way beyond the standard tests you typically get in an annual medical checkup visit. Concierge medicine and functional medicine doctors charge thousands of dollars for these types of workups. Quest offers them for the price of a night on the town. Your health and well-being are worth it. Visit questhealth.com and use the discount code REALDECEMBER25 and get 20% off your purchase. That's questhealth.com, code REALDECEMBER25 for 20% off. There's a link in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube or whatever. And now let's bring up the great Lenore Skenazy.
Welcome. Great. Well, that's a nice introduction. Thank you so
I
much.
probably bring you up like once a day in
that's
conversation.
True. I appreciate it. Right.
At least like once every 3 walk-ins welcomes, I talk about you.
Very cool. Well, you're talking my language tonight because surveillance is something that we we think so much about kids and phones and social media, but the flip side is what does it mean to always have your phone with you, which means that your parents are always watching you. And that just seems to like go like, well, that's just the way it is. And I think that it's more profound than that. So let's add it.
Yeah, I'm wondering, have you done any research or polling or anything on this? It's interesting to me because when, like I mentioned in my monologue, when we
Yeah.
tried to get the Nanette out of the room, even our toddler was like, "No, how will you guys watch me?" And I was like, "We're getting it out of there." And she kind of protested, but then I also realized that it was her way of also summoning us very quickly.
It's
She
like
knew
it's
to
like
talk to it and be like,
the game of Clue where you're in the parlor and you're summoning, Colonel Mustard
yeah, like a
there. Yeah.
butler. Exactly.
Yeah,
Which
right.
also
Hey,
I'm like,
excuse
okay, we're
me.
getting it out of here. But she would be like, "Mommy," in the middle of the night when she had her, it wasn't her big girl bed. So, but it was still, we didn't have that stuff growing up. We had those like janky, the ones that would like pick up the phones next door.
What we had, and it was so dumb, and it really like it just shows that you can be the free range mom and still be totally clueless. Is we were living in a one bedroom apartment when our babies were born, and we had a sound monitor. Back then they didn't have the video monitors. Our
Yeah.
kids are in their late 20s. And so the sound monitor would go off. It's like, well, who needs like we can hear them. It's a one bedroom. It's like they're going wah
Right.
wah and the monitor going wah, wah. And it's like this is so dumb, but we felt like we couldn't possibly live without a monitor. So I bought into that too, and it's only gotten stranger. I mean, after my kids were little, then along came the video monitors, and then there were video monitors that swept the room like this, as if it was at the time of like the Osama hunt. And it's like, I wonder if he's in his cave. I mean, it was just like looking for intruders or imaginary friends. I mean, you didn't
Yep.
need something to show you that granular detail. You didn't need anything to show you at all what was going on in their room. And yet then it became the norm. And once something becomes the norm, then you think you need it, even if you don't.
Well, there's this really interesting idea that Thomas de Zengotita, and I think I've talked to you about this before. He talks about it in his book Mediated, called Justin's Helmet Principle, and he uses it he talks about it in regards to when he was a kid, we didn't have helmets. And then why
Right?
would you want to be the parent that doesn't have the kid with a helmet? And why would you want to risk your kid being the one that falls off and gets a traumatic brain injury? And so as you get more and more of these things that you can bubble wrap your kid in, as everybody kind of opts into it, you
Mm-hmm.
end up being the weird parent that doesn't do it. But also now, as you fight all the time, you could be arrested for letting your kid, as you learned the hard way in your
Right.
own life, you
I
could
was not
be
arrested, but
not
yes.
arrested, but
Right.
you could be you were publicly shamed. You could be arrested. Some parents are arrested for letting their kid just kind of walk on their own at 8, 9, 10 years old in
Yeah,
their
yeah.
neighborhood.
Yeah, no, that was the big story this past year was the mom in Georgia, Brittany Patterson, who actually just left her kid at home with his grandpa. Everybody forgets that grandpa was home, and he was supposed to stay home while she took another kid to the doctor. And instead, the 10-year-old had the temerity, nobody's ever done this before in the history of the world, to leave the house without telling grandpa and walk to town. And because somebody saw him out on the street and even asked him, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine." Nonetheless, that passerby felt compelled to call the cops, and the cops picked him up. And what was interesting was that when they called the mom, does your mom know you're out here? No, I left the house. Okay, let's call her. And they asked her, "Do you know where your son is?" And she said, "Yeah, he's home with grandpa." And they said, "Oh no, he's not, and what kind of terrible mom are you? You don't know where your kid is." So this is when it starts becoming like, if you're not constantly aware of everything that your kid is doing, seeing, eating, watching, reading, walking to, somehow that's bad. And what was really interesting, first of all, was the incredible fact that she was arrested
Yeah.
in front of her kids, hands behind the back, put into handcuffs, and hauled off to jail for the crime of not knowing where her 10-year-old was when she was taking another kid to the doctor. But in terms of our discussion tonight, when Child Protective Services came to her home, because this was such a scandal, they told her that she had to sign a safety plan. And part of the safety plan was that she would always let the children know when she was leaving the house. and that she would always have the kids tell her when they were leaving the house, and that she had to install a tracker on her phone in front of the social worker, because that way we could guarantee, the state could guarantee that she was tracking her kid. And it's like, since when did it become illegal not to know exactly where your kids are at every
Yeah.
single moment? And I think that is the moment that it became illegal.
That's crazy. I didn't
Yeah,
follow that story past her getting arrested and
yeah,
into the tracking zone. That's insane.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
actually brought something to show you and to wow your video audience with tonight, and I will bring it out right now because it's this. What is this?
I can't really see it.
It's
Oh,
a
it's
shoe.
a shoe.
It's a Skechers shoe, and if you undo the, of course, it has laces, but nobody has to tie them, right? Got the Velcro. And then you lift up the inner inside here. One second. So I'm
Oh,
lifting
are
up the
these shoes
insole.
that like have the tracking devices? Oh,
Yes. Yes, they do. They have a tracking device that you can put in there, and the kid can't get it out because you need like a tiny little Phillips head screwdriver to put it in, and they don't even have to know it's there. And
ew.
these are just a regular thing. We won't believe it. Last night I was walking past, literally last night, I was walking past my Skechers store, and they were throwing out all their signage, about their gym shoes and about their slip-ons for old people and this and that and their boots. And I actually kept digging until I found their sign. It's Find
Oh,
My Skechers. I didn't know I'd be using it so soon, but yeah.
find
So
my. So they kind of promote it as like, oh, I lost my shoe.
Yeah. But on their Instagram, I mean, yes, it's sort of their like, "Oh, wait, we're not saying track your kids. We're saying it's so hard to find your shoes sometimes." But two things. One is
I hate
on
when I can't find my
right,
shoes.
when they're walking around town attached to my child. Right? Oh, that. Right. But then I was looking. So I'm trying to find evidence here. Look at this. There's a little map on here. I don't think you need a map to find your shoes. I don't think your shoes
Mm,
go walking around town without you, and therefore you need to find your Skechers. So clearly, it's just becoming the norm. And what you said before this was that um, there's a difference between, you used to have to opt in to do
yeah.
this stuff, but now it's almost opting out. And just like with a helmet, it is hard to opt out and say, "Well, I'm not going to put a helmet on my kid," when it's become the norm. And it's becoming the norm. And now, as we saw with the case of the mom in Georgia, almost becoming legally the norm. I mean, I don't think it really is, except in her case yet, but so far it's not there. But it's creeping towards such normalcy that you have to be like, Bridget to say no. I mean, you have to be somebody really swimming upstream and thinking deeply about whether the trade-off makes sense. Oh, I could know where they are all the time, and won't they be safer? But is there something lost? And I think the something lost nobody really cares about, because once you say safety, nothing trumps safety. We're in a safetyism culture.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's there's so much to this. Like, we were even talking about in the monologue, the kids aren't drinking, they're not smoking, they're not,
They're in their rooms.
partying,
How could they
whatever.
be
But
drinking and
but
smoking and partying? They can't get anyone pregnant. They're in their room
but
without anyone
how
else.
also I could sneak out when I was a kid. You can't even sneak out. Even if we didn't have a ring, every one of my neighbors does.
Oh,
Like
that's interesting.
how are you going to take the car out of your house?
Right.
How are you going to even get out of your house if you have most people have surveillance? Like, even
That's
in my
so
instance, because
interesting.
I'm a like quasi public figure, so we have to
Uh-huh.
have a little bit higher security than maybe normal people.
Mm-hmm.
And even still, say we didn't have any of that, I know for a fact that she would have to walk by six people with a ring camera, and there's no way that she would escape that, even getting out of the neighborhood. So we've all opted into not only surveilling, self surveillance, but we're also kind of all spying on each other. And I see this stuff all the time in Facebook communities.
Oh, tell me, because I'm not on them. Let me hear.
Oh, like the local Facebook communities, they're
Yeah.
just rife with like these two kids played ding dong ditch and they're gonna get shot, and like they put a screenshot of the kids and it's like kids. I'm like, how are kids gonna even? They can't even do ding dong ditch without like adults posting up their faces in the middle of a Facebook.
Wow.
community for like the neighborhood or whatever. And now everybody's on the lookout for these hooligans that are out there doing like we used to do dumb stuff like that all the time.
Yeah, yeah. So th what's interesting is that we long for a time when people were sitting on their porch, right?
Mm,
And watching the kids go by and saying, "Don't you steal those apples," or, if you keep being mean to your sister, I'm going to tell your mother. We long for human interaction and human judgment, but what we're getting instead is this surveillance culture. And it doesn't come with any nuance and it doesn't come with any actual interaction with the kids, right? The kids are out there and the adults are watching the feed, I guess, and then commenting later. It's almost like childhood is this spectator sport or Ready Player One sort of thing where everybody's watching. And really, I think if people are so concerned about their communities and their safety, the thing that makes you really safe and the thing that makes you actually much happier is interacting, not
right,
just watching, right? And that's when the kids get to know the neighbors and when they start feeling at home too. And when you start being able to relax because the neighbors are watching out for your kids as opposed to surveilling your kids.
right.
So, what it boils down to is more trust rather than less, and surveillance makes it seem like you're not supposed to trust anyone. And that's a low trust society. In terms of your kid, she's 3.5. She's not on these um, surveys yet. But when they've done surveys of trust, human trust, like are most people decent? Can you trust most people? The people who have the highest level of trust are like me. They're the old people. And then it's a little less, the Gen X, and then a little less the millennials. And the ones who have the least trust in their fellow humans are young people. And that seems really awful for a culture. You want a culture to be cohesive and to sort of give everyone the benefit of the doubt. And instead, it's the default is no, why would I trust you? And maybe surveillance plays into that.
But again, I mean, just to play the devil's advocate, well, two things come to mind. If you are online all the time, you're going to be much more skeptical of people in general because you have to be. So
That's
now
true.
you're going, is this AI? Is this a scam? Is this
That's true.
somebody
No,
who's
the AI
catfishing
thing.
me? Is
Yeah.
this somebody? I mean, these kids are raised with as they should be of the default to be like, this person probably isn't who they say they are. So why would I expect them to be able to transition to the real world and go, "Oh, this person is who they say they are"? Because obviously the
hmm
internet is populated with people who are either pretending to be someone else
Or not
or they're
existing at all.
anonymously trolling people. And it's clearly that could be my lovely. I mean, South Park did a great episode about this where it was Stan's dad. He was like this love, or no, I think it was not Stan's dad. It was the Kyle's dad.
Okay.
He was like this, nice homey guy, but then he'd go online and just be this like dirt bag being horrific to people. And sometimes when I'm out in the world, because I
Yeah.
get trolled so often, I wonder like, are you one of those people standing in line next to me at the grocery store
So your
that's
trust has
online
plunged.
telling women that
Right.
they should
Bridget's is down at
repeal the
like
19th?
3%.
Like
So, so you're bringing up something really interesting, which is the real world versus the online world. And of course, we're all worried about deep fakes and AI and romantic involvements with, creatures that don't
predators.
exist. So let me put in a good word for Let Grow, which is the nonprofit that I run. And I started it with Jonathan Haidt and Peter Gray, who writes about the importance of free play, and Daniel Schuckman, who was for 10 years the chairman of FIRE, which fights for free speech on campus. So all of us are concerned about kids growing up resourceful, resilient, open-minded. And over the summer, John and I and his main researcher, Zach, got the Harris people to do a poll about kids and the online world and the real world. And I just have to say that the most interesting thing that we learned is that when you ask kids how do they want to spend time with their friends, and you say, do you want to spend time just outside in the real world? We didn't say ding dong ditch, but that's the basic idea, just unsupervised with your friends. Or would you rather be in an organized activity like soccer or chess or ballet, with your friends? Or would you rather be playing video games or texting or Snapchatting, whatever, with your friends? So it's real world supervised activities online. And I will show you this kind of bad Xerox of it, but I'll show you.
How can I stop and ask you a question? How
Yes.
old are the kids?
Oh, sorry. What a great question. 8 to 12 years old.
Okay.
And they were demographically across the board.
Okay.
And and so this is just playing with my friends in the real world,
Mm-hmm.
which is the number one choice if you're just listening. The middle choice was being in an organized activity, and the very bottom was being online, whether
Okay.
that's video games or chatting. And what this says to me is that it says to anybody, you look at the graph, it says it. Kids want to be in the real world with their friends. And when you talk about like what is happening to them online, they're getting cynical, they're getting worried that they can't trust anyone or anything. It's like the antidote is the real world. Spending time with real people, seeing their faces, hearing their voices. I'm not an AI creature. I exist. And yet we keep saying the kids are spending all their time online because they're so obsessed with their phones, but it's a default because
Mm.
we haven't let them go outside. And if you don't let them go outside, then all these bad things we're worried about happening to them, including the loneliness, including, the sense of what am I capable of? Nothing. I've done nothing in the real world. I can't even walk to the store. My parents don't even think I can, ride my bike around the corner. That gets cured if we would only let them do stuff. But we haven't been letting them do stuff and they fall into their phones.
Yeah, I was laughing. Like, I was
Yeah.
actually on a podcast yesterday with John Papola from
Oh, yeah,
Dad
I know
Saves
John.
America.
Yeah.
I love him so much. But we were
Ditto.
talking, I was like, it has been a little weird being like a liberal woman who grew up Gen X, going from all I ever heard was like, the kids are having too much sex and teen pregnancy and
Right.
all this stuff.
Bring
And
back
now
teen
all the
pregnancy.
conservatives are like, why aren't the kids having sex? I'm like, this is a little bit of a
Oh,
strange
it's
inversion.
why aren't kids having fun? Why aren't they trusting anyone? Why are they in their bedrooms? Why has as independence, I mean, I quote this all the time, but Peter Gray, who's a psychology professor at Boston College, did this fantastic piece in the Journal of Pediatrics, which is, pretty prestigious place. And he documented that over the decades, we're talking about since boomers, Gen X, millennials, as independence and free play, kids hopping on their bikes and going outside, have gone down. Anxiety and depression have gone up. So it's not even just since the phones, it's not just since COVID. It really makes sense because, you're talking about your own childhood that you did all these things. What did you get from that? What did you get from being outside, goofing around with your friends? Just tell me anything, emotionally. Let's talk about social emotional intelligence that you got from that. What?
Yeah, I think about this all day, every day, because I was taking I truly do. Like, I'm obsessed with this. Because I was going for a walk the other day in my neighborhood, and it was literally like a scene from ET. It was a skateboard, three bikes,
And an
another,
extraterrestrial.
and they were all and an ET, and they were all just like laying on top of each other in on the grass. And I was like, oh, this is why I moved here. I
That's
moved
so
here for
great.
this.
Yeah.
And I see it all the time in our neighborhood. The kids just like riding around on their bikes and like doing their own thing. And it seems like there's a lot of that here. And from what I can tell from most of my friends in other parts of the suburban Austin area, it is a very similar experience to what we had growing up.
Oh, it is. Oh, I thought you were going to say it's the opposite. Oh, that's
No,
fantastic
no.
to
From what
hear.
I can
Okay.
tell, it's like
Okay.
people are really actively trying to cultivate that, in particular in
So,
Texas and like the suburbs of Texas.
okay.
I do worry that, what I think, I feel bad for Gen Z because maybe perhaps the people
Oh,
are
now the
learning,
pendulum is
the
swimming.
pendulum might
Yeah, but
swing, so they
they blew there.
might be the worst of it. Fingers crossed. I don't
Wouldn't
know.
that be
AI
great? Yeah.
could change everything. I'm even more, sometimes I have these conversations and it feels like quaint to me. I'm like, oh, we're talking about phones. We are, because now there's AI. And
Yeah.
the other day I was on Twitter, and there was a tweet going around that was talking about, it was a woman and she's in education, and she's like, guys, no one is talking about how bad this is. They're not talking, no one's talking about how basically we're lobotomizing an entire generation with AI. They don't know how to think. They will know how to do nothing but prompt, and that is it. And that is probably way more
That's cheery.
terrifying to
Yeah.
me than even the phones, but they need phones to be able to do that. And again, there's lots of ways that people are. I just right before I logged in saw that
Hmm.
there's like a anonymous Japanese animation studio that is now making the artists draw in front of them so that they can prove that it's not generative AI that they're using to make all of
Wow.
their creations. And
That's everything. That's like the professors who hand out the blue books and you got to write it with pen instead of bringing anything home.
yeah, when
Um,
we had Coleman Hughes on the podcast, he was
mhm.
talking about ways to kind of AI proof your classroom, and it's going back to oral and written, exams
Right,
right in the classroom and kind of the
right,
old times. But
right.
to answer your question, what did
Yeah.
I
So what
get? I
did you
mean,
get out of it? Because then I have like a couple of
freedom. I
solutions.
I just
Yeah.
felt like I remember I have such vivid memories of being probably 12 years old. My brother was probably 10, my sister was probably 8,
Yeah.
probably, and the three of us would wake up at 7 a.m. We'd get on our bikes, we would go down and take swimming lessons in Connecticut. We would ride our bikes all the way to the end of the point with our lunches. We would stay there all day long swimming, and my mom would usually kind of join us later with the two youngest because I'm the oldest of five.
Hmm.
And then we would ride our bikes home, and and we would just be out and gone. We would take our little sailboat out and like capsize it. I mean, we were doing all kinds of stuff. But then when I got a little older, when you were like, my sisters and cousins and I, who were not supervised, probably borderline neglected children of divorce,
Oh,
we were like, they were talking about how their kids who are older are just such angels compared to what we were up to. When you said they can't even go to the store, I started laughing because my brain immediately went to ask a creepy old man to buy you cigarettes. Like that. That's what
great.
I was up to at 14 years old.
Let me be on record that that's not the best childhood experience, but you're smiling and you're laughing, and there's something proud about that memory. It feels like, I mean, you're sort of saying it with a little bit of swagger. Am I wrong?
No, I mean it's funny because there's got to be like a happy. I think my cousins and siblings have done a good job at kind of that happy medium. I When I
Mm-hmm.
went home to visit my family, my brother's kids were living like a 90s childhood. They were just outside all day. It, it it's it's encouraging to see that a lot of people I know have done it very well. And I don't know if I told you,
Hmm.
I did an interview with my sister and her three kids, and
Oh, that's a cool idea.
I never put it out because they were all minors and we were like, I don't know. But we
Oh,
looked at everyone's screen time, and the adults had more screen time than the kids. And my oldest nephew, who's very much like loves being in this world, he doesn't really love being on his phone. The second one down, probably, he was like, well, I don't have that much screen time, but I'm more of a gamer. So he could at least acknowledge that his screen time went somewhere else. And the youngest, he loves he had not as much even screen time as we did. And I always say I
hmm.
often feel like this movement that's like the kids, the screens, the kids, the screens, as a way of deflecting from the parents responsibility. Like, more, as my friend Candace Hortez always says, more is caught than taught.
Oh, for
So
sure. I love
the
that phrase.
parents are
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
get off your phone,
Right,
while we're
right,
all staring at our phones. And it's a
right.
way of deflecting blame, really, and putting the responsibility on the kids to do what the adults aren't even doing around them.
So let me roll back a little because I love what I'm hearing about Austin. And it's not what we were hearing when we did this survey, the Harris poll. Because when we asked these 8 to 12-year-old kids what they're allowed to do on their own, the majority said that they are rarely or never allowed to walk around their neighborhoods, their own
Oh,
neighborhoods, without an adult. They didn't think they were allowed in public without an adult. And 25% weren't allowed to play on their own front lawn. And the statistics just kept going up. And when you talk about AI, we did one comparison, you get all these numbers that more kids had spoken to had chatted with a bot than had used a sharp knife. So there's
Wow.
something, I mean, I'm trying to get kids to have the childhood that you're seeing in Austin or that you and I remember from our own childhoods. And the way Let Grow is going about this is just two ways, and I got to put in a plug for it because all our
Of
stuff is
course.
free. So in terms of getting kids back outside, there are a lot of parents who just don't know when they're supposed to or allowed to, or when it is okay to let your kids, once again, walk to the store or climb a tree or go to a friend's house. And it's not that they're so afraid of being arrested. They're afraid usually that something terrible, and they don't usually even they don't specify, but something bad will happen to the kid. And actually, one of we did a poll of parents as well, and 50% of parents of kids, 50% of parents, when asked this question, what do you think would happen if two 10-year-olds are playing at a park unsupervised? 50% of them said they were likely to be kidnapped. So,
Whoa.
so it's just, it's a real mismatch between reality and fears. And the fears are what then keep parents keeping their kids inside or tracking them or both. And so, how do you make it normal again for parents to open that door? Because, what John is trying to say is if you're going to take away the phone, open the door. I say that too. If you're going to take away the phone, open the door. But opening the door has been going down for those decades, right?
Right.
It's just become harder and harder. There were milk carton kids, there's cable TV, there's 24-hour news cycle, there's action news, there's all these scary things out there. Now you have the internet, and everybody's just coming up with new things to be worried about in the real world from strangers, stranger danger. So, how do you get parents over the fear to realize, like, hey, this is actually great? And the only way you do it is by gently nudging them to do it. And so Let Grow's free program for schools is called the Let Grow Experience. And that's just a homework assignment that the teacher gives the kids every month. And it just says something like, go home and do something new on your own with your parents' permission, but without your parents. And we give a list. You can, as we've discussed, climb the tree, make pancakes, go visit grandma. And because everyone is doing it, it becomes normal again. John always talks about a collective problem needs a collective solution. Well, I don't know when I'm allowed to let my 7-year-old out, but all the other second graders are doing something. I guess I'll let mine go to, the pool with his older brother, or, to get some candy or whatever. And so it's only after you've let the kid go and you've seen that, like, they came back and they got the candy and they're not sharing, but that's okay. Or they forgot to get the
Hmm.
change, but that's okay. Or they got lost on the way, but that's okay. It's only after you realize, like, this is great. I'm proud of my kid. I didn't realize they could do this. Come to think of it, I was doing this at their age, that the brain starts to rewire towards trust as
Right.
opposed to terror. And if you do it once a month, by the end of a year, it's just become a lot more normal. And all the other kids are doing it. So the kids are telling each other what they're doing it. And then the parents start bragging online. Oh, my kid got his own haircut. Oh, well, mine got to Kuman or something horrible like that. But it just becomes, it builds on itself. And I think you can end up seeing a lot more communities like you're seeing with the kids on
Right.
their bikes. I heard about a mom of a 10-year-old when I was giving a talk in Connecticut 3 weeks ago, who was terrified of letting her kids do anything. And so she let her 10-year-old like ride his bike up and down the block for his Let Grow experience. And finally he said, Mom, this is so boring. Can I please go around the corner? And she said, right. And so he went around the corner, and then he got his buddy. And then the two of them started riding, and then the three, and then the four. And over the summer, they ended up with 10 kids in their biker gang.
Yeah.
And then after I spoke there, she sent me a picture very recently, like last week, of them out in the cold. It was just six of them, but it was like it's 30 degrees. And here they are outside because now the kid had something to live for. He had friends and he had freedom and he had a bike and he had a mom who, instead of terrified, wouldn't let him go down and beyond the block because she treated him like a baby, is now proud of him and sharing the picture with me because look at my kid. Boy, I'm so
Yep.
proud. So the Let Grow experience is so simple. There's nothing easier. It's homework only in that you do it at home. Actually, you do it outside of the home. But but that is changing communities. I mean, we hear about, like, now there's kids outside, or now the kids are tying their own shoes. It's just amazing. And really, one school I went to, 2 weeks after they started the Let Grow experience, the principal said, "Well, now kids are sticking out their feet less." And I was like, because you had kids tripping each other, that's so mean. And she said, no, now they're tying their own shoes. They used to they used to stick out their feet and wait for the teacher to tie their shoe. You know,
Wow.
We have
it's
some hands.
babyism
Yeah,
versus,
babyism.
right? You got a question?
We've
We ha
got some people.
we have
Yes,
some
a
people.
All
couple
right.
hands here.
All right.
First, I'm going to bring up Murphy.
I see Murphy. Hello.
Oh, let me ask you to unmute there, Murphy.
Now you disappear. Oh, there you are.
There she
There.
is.
Thank you so much for coming, Lenore. Thank you for talking about this, Bridget. I have one daughter. She's 16. We're teaching her how to drive.
Oh, that's the
Oh,
worst. Oh my
fun.
God.
Yeah, my husband grew up in LA, so he's a great explainer of things. And also there's that whole daughter to daddy thing that's working out very well. But it's interesting that I asked her, hey, she turned 16 in last January, so it's been a while, right? And I remember being really eager to get my driver's license. She's eager to do it, but it doesn't seem to be an issue for most of her friends. She has her little group of friends in school, and I said, how have any of your friends gotten their license? She's like, no, they're not even really doing it. And we, of course, I want her to be safe and as she's driving, not run into other people and damage other things and herself. But I find that she is having difficulty making decisions that have to be made when you're driving. Like, okay, do I go this way or this way? How do I change lanes? She wants us to give her the okay to do it. I'm like, well, of course, while she's learning right now, that's great. But that decision in the moment is, I think, exactly what we're talking about. A very good example of what Gen Zers are dealing with right at this moment. Like, oh, I need to make this decision and stand by it, an important decision, without having to double check with my parent.
Mm.
Yeah. First of all, my sympathies. My kids learned how to drive and it just drove me insane. It's the thing I'm most afraid of. I live in New York City. I get around by subway, but they drive cars. It's just so terrible. I wouldn't necessarily, generalize from not knowing when to change lanes yet, or do I go through the yellow light, or do I slow down at the beginning of driving, because that is really confusing, and it is the first time you have this, ton of steel under, your power. So, but I am concerned in general about kids having outsourced so much of their decision making to adults because they were required to. I mean, like even the reading log. The reading log is my bête noire. It's where at night kids have to read for 20 minutes. And I once asked on Facebook, do parents like this? They all hate it, and the kids hate it. And what happens is that you've taken something that was intrinsic, an interest in something, and you've turned it into an extrinsic job, which is a parent watching a kid read, which is like the way nobody reads. And one parent wrote that now her kid stops mid-sentence. Her kid who used to like reading stops mid-sentence 20 minutes in because that's it. It's no longer his interest. And so, in terms of parents and other adults controlling our kids all the time, what I've heard that is sort of worse to me is that like teachers keep telling me that if a kid drops a pen in class, they stare at it, waiting for somebody to tell them if they should pick it up. Are they allowed to pick it up? I heard it 3 times. I used to be a journalist. 3 times makes a trend, but I did hear it from different teachers in different parts of the country, and so it didn't seem like it's just an urban myth. And then I was just talking to another teacher the other day at one of these schools I was at, and she said that, you give the kids piece of paper. All right, you got to start your quiz and put your name at the top. And they say, where? Like, do you want it on the left? Do you want my name in the middle? Do you want my name at the right? Because they've had a life of so many strictures and so much help from adults telling them exactly how to do things. And here, honey, let me help you. And you did it great. That's great. That's exactly what I wanted. That we've sort of drained them of many opportunities when you do have to make split-second decisions, whether you're writing your name or one of the ways that kids learn to make these decisions throughout history was by playing. right? You're playing a game and it's like, well, I'm gonna, we don't have second base. Let's just say there's no second base anymore. Okay. And then they start running. And all of play when you're improvising is decision making and rule making, and then deciding if those rules work and then arguing about it. And all that give and take has also been taken out of kids' lives when we replaced it with just adult run activities. If you're in soccer, you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing, and part of the time is drills anyway. So the idea that you would make up your own teams or your own rules or decide if the ball was in or out or whatever you decide in soccer, that has been taken out of kids' lives, and then we expect them to make decisions. We've taken out sort of the building blocks of being a functioning young person by not letting them have free play and then not letting them do anything in the real world, so they never have to deal with the real world.
Well, not
So
only that, they the consequences. Will they guess right? Probably not. Will they guess wrong? It's far higher likelihood that they'll guess wrong because everyone is going to have an opinion, and the child will say, "We'll do it," and the parent will go, "Well, I don't like how you wrote that first capital letter," and so no matter what, they'll get it wrong because the parent is trying. Like, we're trying to figure out what to do. We don't know exactly.
Right.
We're like, well, now we have to come up with an opinion. So, like an asshole boss, we say, "Well, I wanted 3 of those," or some dumb thing, and so that's the same thing. So the kids are like, I know I'm going to get it wrong. So why don't you
They're
just
risk averse. They're risk
Yeah.
averse. And one of the reasons they're risk averse is because we are watching them and we are going to judge them. And it's not us, it's a teacher or a coach or another adult. And so that's why the TED Talk is why you should spend less time with your kids. It's inevitable that if we see our kids doing something that we think is, inefficient or dumb or wrong or mean, we jump in and then we tell them what to do, as opposed to them figuring it out because the stakes are low. They're just playing a game of kickball with their friends. They're going to figure out a lot more than if we're always perfecting and optimizing their lives. So really we've done them a disservice by always being with them. Now in the car, when you're teaching a kid, you got to be with them. But I would say
Worker is concerned about the
hire
driving.
hire somebody to teach your kids to drive if
No,
you can afford it.
she's doing great, honestly. She's doing great as far as that goes. She's just a little bit hesitant, which is probably preferable to being roaring ahead. But in addition to the parents being right there all the time to say, well, you should do it slightly different, the internet is there for everything,
Well, that's true.
to give the worst possible scenario for any choice.
That's so true.
So the
That's why you
parents
can't, you
don't
have to
even
ignore
be
it.
there.
That's why I got to send them outside
Thank you,
without a
Murphy.
phone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Murph.
All
I see
right.
a
I'm
hand.
going to
Yeah.
bring up Season next.
Oh,
There we
he
go.
is.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Season.
Hello.
Hi, Susan.
How's it going?
Good.
From the last conversation, I forgot to answer you, Bridget. My kids are actually okay. They came out of the whole COVID lockdowns pretty well because they were homeschooled previously, and it was like we just went straight into learning because we don't see learning as just happening in school. So they
Mhm.
actually did pretty well. I think most homeschool kids probably did well. They might have lost some opportunities, but mostly I think most homeschool kids seem like they did okay. But mine are okay. They'll tell you they don't trust the government. That's what they learned out of that. But other than that,
I
they
don't think
also
my
learned that
kid
their
trusts the
school board
government.
doesn't listen to them. That was the other thing they learned. I didn't take notes real quick because I always do this while we're talking, just in case
I do
I
too.
forget.
Right.
So, like my kids are now 18, 16, and 13. And I can tell you, I tried to Gen X the hell out of those children. I tried to get them to go outside. Like I took them outside when they were younger. We spent a lot of time outside, and they were like, they're in that age where like the iPhone wasn't super, super prevalent quite when they were little. It still wasn't like smartphones still weren't like, they remember DVDs. They remember watching DVDs.
Wow.
Like that's kind of like how we did things. And they didn't, I know all about like not allowing them on social media. So I've been cued into all of this stuff. Like their whole childhood. Like I don't track them. They didn't get tracked until they got iPhones because iPhones track everyone. Right. So whether you put a tracking app on or not, if you have an iPhone, you're going to be able to find your kid wherever they are. And I didn't want to do that. Anything having to do with technology, Bridget, you and I are the same here, has come from my husband, not from me. because the whole time I've been like, nobody knew where the hell I was. I was on my bike. My mom still to this day doesn't know where we were half the time. Like,
Well, I
and
thought
it's
where you are now.
okay. Like we
But
were in
some of the
drain pipe.
kids like being tracked.
I was
Like
telling my
they
kids,
actually like it.
I'm
They
like, do you
want they,
realize when we were kids, we were in drain pipes? We explored drain pipes on our, we would climb over the hill and there'd be water coming out of this pipe and we'd be like, where'd that go? And we would go in there. And it's foreign to my kids. It's not because I didn't try. It's when they
Yeah.
would go out, there were no other children out.
yeah.
So they would come back. My kids knew I would set a timer. I'd be like, you got to go outside for an hour. Because my mom used to like lock the door.
Yeah.
And you got to go play outside. They would sit on the porch swing for that whole hour and they
Yeah.
would not go play. And then all it took was meanwhile, the other neighborhood kids that are my son's age, they're outside having a 90s childhood right now. They all play outside, but my son doesn't do sports and he's not into the same stuff they are. So he's just not outside. So it's not like I didn't let my kids, they're not allowed to have social media till they're 18. My middle kid got one at 16. Again, that was not exactly something I really wanted, but it happened. So I've tried to do like a lot of this stuff and I think they're doing like somewhat well. They seem to have a good grasp on how much time to spend online. But the biggest issue that I have is like they were more like TV kids. Like there's a difference between TV screen time because and phone time because it's TV screen time is passive and
Passive,
phone time
yeah.
is more interactive, right? I actually prefer that they like TV and film. It's probably because of my husband. But they struggle to make friends. Like the biggest issue that my kids have is they have inherited genetic anxiety, which is not helpful in this day and age to have anxiety that you've gotten
Never
from
helpful.
outside of the family. Okay, so I've got two kids with massive anxiety issues. They have trouble making friends. None of my kids really have friends. And I don't know if that's a Gen Z thing or what it is, but they have a lot of trouble making friends. They also don't go anywhere. And it's not because this Gen X mom is like, let's hug and be around each other all the time. It's just they don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's not, and my kids read, they spend a lot of their time reading and breaking down films because their dad's a filmmaker. So they're good with all of that. But in terms of socializing, they're straight Gen Z. I think my son's more like Gen Alpha because he's 13. He's right on the cusp. But like they don't make friends. And when I tell them how to make friends, like you have to go places, you have
Can
to
I,
like
none of
can
I jump in for one second here?
Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, it's always, watching our kids whenever they're unhappy is so hard, is all I can say.
Yeah.
I've felt it too. So, and I hope I hope they make their friends very soon. One way that kids have traditionally made friends is when you're doing something together, because it's easier if you have an activity and it doesn't have to be a sport. But what I wanted to talk about, that the other Let Grow activity that we recommend is to keep the school open, or go to the school if your kids aren't there, for what we call a Let Grow Play Club, which is a bad name because it's also for older kids. But it's a place where kids can gather. We keep wishing that there was some place where that was like a third place, you've heard
Third
about
spaces.
third
Yeah.
space. Thank
We
you.
had them.
Right. So this is a third space that happens to be at the school, but it's not an organized activity. It's just free time after school with very minimal light supervision, like a lifeguard in case there's something terrible. But then I've watched these play clubs, and a bunch of boys will always go and organize a soccer game. And I've even watched kids say, "Can I play?" And they absorb the kid. But then I also see kids who are not the sports kids, and some of them are talking, and some of them are just, kicking rocks and hanging out by the swings, and some of them are drawing with chalk. And it's easiest to get to know your fellow humans and become friends with them when you have some free time and you decide, let's build something. So when John Haidt wrote The Anxious Generation, I got to help on the chapter for schools and the chapter for parents. And the schools chapter, when I was writing about free play, an expert in England said, make sure that on the playground you have some sandbags, big sandbags filled with sand. And I didn't know why. And he said, it's because you can't move them yourself. So what you do is you build in opportunities for kids to do stuff together, and then you stand back And if your kids aren't playing sports, they aren't playing sports, but chances are they'll want to build something, or they'll find one other friend who's a different age from them who they didn't already know. Maybe especially if they're at school, school is so segregated by age. And then you just let time take its course. Time, free play, no phones. And generally, it's an easier way for kids to make friends than saying you have to be on the soccer team even though you hate soccer.
It's
or
so
even you have to
depressing
go to
that we
school.
have to do this. I'm sorry, but like
That's the
this
thing, though. I'm just
conversation
like,
is
I
making me
feel like
so
I
sad.
feel like I've
that we have
tried
to
and
like put sandbags out so the kids have to, like,
It might be
each
depressing, but
other.
if it works and it's really cheap, why
No,
not try
I
it?
agree.
Yeah.
It's like great that it's so good that it's more, I'm more
No, I know it's
30,000
terrible that we
feet.
have to
Like,
talk about
Yeah.
children need play. It's like
we
children
need
need
sandbags so
food.
the kids
Really?
can.
You didn't know that kids needed food? You've never been
Well,
fed?
I just feel like I've done every possible thing I can, and I don't want to interfere too much.
Right.
You
Well, this
also
is a
don't,
space where you're
you
not
also,
there.
you
And
also don't want to be. Here's the other problem that I see is that it can be another way for a parent to be completely anxious because you're like, oh God, are they getting enough play? Are they interacting enough? And now,
just send them to
I'm
it.
not, I just like
Yeah.
to clarify, I'm not the anxious one.
no,
Yeah.
I know.
Okay,
You
like
seem
I'm
pretty
not the one that
mellow.
I'm
feels the
speaking
urge.
for myself.
Oh, I know,
I'm,
but I've never felt that urge to be next to them and helicopter parent my children ever. I'm the one that was like letting her 1.5-year-old climb up onto the plaything and like sitting on the bench and watching. Like I've
no,
never been that way, but there are but that is totally a chance for that to happen.
no, I'm not saying that the not the anxiety about the safetyism anxiety. I mean, it can be a way for a parent to beat themselves up and feel
Oh,
like
there's so
they're
much beating
anxious
themselves
about
up.
not
Yeah.
doing enough of this stuff.
Yeah.
So then it becomes another thing that you have to do on top of all the
Yeah.
things you have to do.
It's
Right.
less
So
anxious for me and more
let's say it's
exhausting.
not another thing you have to do. It's just an option that's sort of less intense.
Right.
You don't have to be there. It doesn't have to be expensive. And it's a way of like scheduling free time that happens someplace else where there are a lot of other kids. Because if once the kids go home, that's when they go on to their phones, right? But if they're all there and it's a no phone zone, what you've done is sort of created a wildlife sanctuary where the kids can have time. You've created a time and a place where kids can just hang out, and it doesn't have to be something to be anxious about. It's like, thank God there's an alternative to travel lacrosse and the chess team or me watching them read for the 20 minutes. They've just
Right.
got free time with other kids.
All right. Thank you. I want to bring up, we've got one more hand. So thank you, Susan.
Thanks, Susan. Good to see you.
But I did also, we had someone in the comments who wanted to ask a question but didn't want to come on camera. So I'm going to ask her a question quickly, and then we'll bring up our final hand raiser. What solutions can you recommend for people to avoid surveillance for their kids? Are there
Oh, that's
anything?
interesting. I guess I haven't actually thought about that much. I just keep thinking about what's bad about surveillance, not how to avoid it. I think you have to be conscious that opting out, even opting, like if an iPhone is going to be tracking them automatically, you get an Android. But you have to recognize that opting out is not putting your kids in danger. And that's the only thing. You just have to recognize that actually what reassures you and what reassures them is it might feel counterintuitive, but it's not knowing everything, because then you fill in the gaps with trust instead of certainty. The apps keep promising that you will know everything about your kids. There are apps from preschools that will tell you how many times your kid went to the bathroom that day and what time they went. I mean, really,
That's not our
it's
kids' preschool.
yeah, probably not a forest school. But anyways, and then there's all the other apps from schools. One of the things you can do is choose not to go on the app that tells you their grades instantly. I mean, there's these portals that are offered to you. And I think you can tell your teacher, I'm not going to avail myself of these. I'd rather my kid tell me their grade or bring home their paper. And then we're going to have, parent teacher conference at the end of the semester. And if there's something horrible in between, you can let me know. But I don't need the granularity that is offered to me by all this technology, because too much information is actually making me more anxious. Knowing their grade on every quiz, did they hand in their homework? Did they eat their 11th orange slice of the day or only 10? Did they pee 3 times or 4 times? That's information that's available to us now. And it's actually making us more anxious than I always think about, like when I went to school and I went around the corner, my mom did not see me until 3:30 in the afternoon. And she didn't spend the whole time wondering, I wonder if she's been abducted. I wonder if she was hit by a car, because she just trusted me and my neighbors and the odds and the school. And that gave her peace of mind. And you don't get peace of mind from constantly checking something, just like people with OCD don't get peace of mind from washing their hands. They just have to wash their hands again. So
That's
you really have to
interesting.
train the trust muscle. You
Mhm.
have to make it strong. And all this technology uncertainty and the monitoring and the surveillance is undermining that natural growth of trust between you and your kid as they get older and do more on their own.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to bring
I'll
up
never
Trish.
forget when we were bringing our kid to preschool,
Yeah.
and she was like 2.5 when she started, maybe, or no, even younger than that. No, around 2.5. And she said, "So why do you guys just leave me at this school?"
Yeah,
It
Mom,
was
why?
so funny. She's like, "So you guys are just gonna leave me at this school?" I mean, she loves it. She like walks in and she's like, "Peace." It doesn't even look back, but it was such a funny question. I was like, "Well, that's a fair question you have, I guess."
Wow.
All right. I'm going to bring up Trish. Ask you to unmute there.
Okay, I know we're short on time, so hi,
Oh my God.
Bridget.
Hi.
So I just wanted to, first of all, tell you, Lenore, I think I tried to get you to talk at my MomCom conference back in the day, like
MomCom.
2012, 2013,
Oh my
14
God.
in Austin. Yeah.
Sorry
And
if I didn't show up, and I hope
oh,
it was
no,
great
no,
if I
you,
did.
no. I was always looking for great speakers, and I just loved you, and everybody who came loved you. Like they were your kind of people, I think. But so it's great to. I saw that you were on, so I had to get on. But that said, my daughter was about probably 5 at that time. She's almost 18 right now. So
Okay.
she's very, very independent. I think part of it was because of she did go to an all girls school that all their classes were around a courtyard where they were outside all the time.
Oh,
They
so
got
great.
dirty. It's in Austin. It's in central Austin, and it was small, and it was a private
Mhm.
school. So we were very lucky to go. Um, she went there until about 7th grade, and then she went into public school, which was, you can see the difference between her and some of the kids. And but I also did want to say, along with Bridget, is in our neighborhood now, there are kids out all the time, and
I'm moving to Austin. This is
Yeah.
like
I
a
know
big
All the
Austin
time.
commercial,
all the
right?
time. And it makes me so happy too, because you do hear all this stuff about how the kids are on their phones all the time. And my daughter is on her phone all the time.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. And one of the reasons we got her a phone was she was a competitive gymnast. And so she
Yes.
was gone all the time. And so she's had it for a long time, and we had the constraints on it. And then after a while, we just kind of gave up. And we were like, you know what, go do whatever. And she did do all that stuff when she was like younger. Like that school was wonderful for, they didn't allow phones.
Mhm.
They played outside. They got
Mhm.
dirty. It was all
Mhm.
girls. So it was so anyway, um, I think she learned a lot of that, and they read all the time. She was a reader, and then I don't know what happened. She's just not. She doesn't read anymore, but she does still. She's extremely active, and she does have, good friends and the whole deal. So I guess, and then, but we're at the point, my whole point was sort of that I followed you all this way, and I totally agree. And I'm from that, I was a latchkey kid,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
the whole deal. But now we are, she's like going down to 6th Street, and which is like where all the bars are.
Oh,
And
really?
and like my whole, like, I told my husband, I was like, well, what are we gonna do? Because she's gonna go. All her friends are lying to their parents, and she's telling us, and she's getting Ubers, or she's calling us, or whatever. And so, like, you get to that point where you're just like, I, I don't even know, like, she's being
She
very
sounds
responsible.
great. She sounds so responsible. She's active. She's got friends. She's not lying to you. I don't think there's a thing that you can complain about. Maybe her bed
Yeah.
is not made. I mean, there's really, she sounds great.
She does. I mean, one of the things I will say, Lenore, that I was talking to a friend about Jonathan Haidt's work and all this stuff, and they've tried very hard to like keep the kids off the phones, smartphones until they're 16. And she's like, she was wondering if he had kids and how old they were because she said nowhere with like high schools and middle schools and whatnot. She was like, you can't get concessions with cash. They don't accept cash.
Oh, yeah,
You
that's
can't
just
get
so horrible.
you
Yeah.
can't go into the football game. She said
Without like a QR code of some sort.
yes.
Yeah.
And she said, and if you do want to get cash, you have to have the principal walk you in. She's like, so we're not gonna like have the principal walk our kid in with all of her
That's
friends.
crazy. Yeah.
And so it's weird because she was like, I understand what he's saying, but does he even know what the landscape is like at these schools? Because
Well, I think the next frontier really is beating back on some of this technology in the schools and saying, look, my kid is not going to take home a Chromebook and do their math on that. You know, give them a worksheet if you must, or write it on the bulletin board, you know, on the blackboard. And similarly, what kind of school can't figure out how to make a ticket for an event? Right? I mean, somehow people manage this for like the last 100 years. You can make
they
tickets
just don't
and
do
sell
it
them.
anymore because it's easier
Yeah.
to just scan the QR code and literally every kid has a phone. So she's waited. She said, and same as what made me think of this was that her kid is also in sports. And she's like with soccer, they're like, she has other kids in the car. She's like, I had to be able to text her to get her to like come meet us when we go pick them up. And she's all
Yeah.
over the place. And
Yeah.
we weren't all in like competitive sports when I was 13. You know, we had
Right.
like it,
That's
it wasn't
true.
that is completely different. Every
And our
parent I
parents weren't
know.
necessarily running to 15 different things
Oh,
with
it's
split-second timing, and I'll meet you at the
crazy.
third doorway and text me if you're not going to be there at 12:22. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a complex world out there, but I think, you know, Bridget, we started this conversation talking about what does surveillance do to the soul, really? You know, growing up thinking that you need constant supervision because without it, you're not safe or you're alone or you're not loved. And I think I would just conclude with that like just think about, I don't want to say be mindful because I'm so sick of the mindful people, but just think about what it
Love Lenore.
means to trust rather than verify. And if you allow yourself to try that a little, whether you're letting your kid walk to the store without a phone or, you know, cook downstairs and you're not going to watch, that's what imbues you with this belief in your kid, in your neighborhood, in your neighbors, in some higher power, if that's what you're believing in, as opposed to just you and your little map. And
Yeah.
it feels great to trust.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm on board with this. We're doing our best to do a 90s childhood as well, but man, it's not easy.
It is, it's upstream.
Yeah.
Thank you, Trish.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're doing great. You know what? All the parents out there listening,
all
watching,
doing great.
you're all
Yeah.
doing great. We're doing the best we can.
You know, Peter Gray always says that by the time you're reading a parenting book, you're already a good parent. You know, you're turning into a podcast about a parent. You know, you're doing it because you love kids and you love your kids and you want to do the best. And that's it. That's all you can do. I mean, there's so many other factors that you will never control. You know, who they meet at school, who their teacher is, their siblings, their genes, their gut biome. You know, I mean, so quit thinking it's all on you and recognize that times change and you're doing your best. And that's it. If you could take a breather, and I think an easiest way to take a breather is by taking your eyes off your kids, it'll all be okay.
Yep. Lenore, where can we find you and all of your
so easy.
wonderful work?
Thank you. So the mall, I'm seeing somebody saying the mall was awesome. Mall was awesome. Still
The
is.
mall was awesome.
Yeah, better than Amazon. So I'm at Let Grow, and it says it down here. It's letgrow.org. And our original name was Let Go and Let Grow, which was easier, but it was too long. And then we changed it to Let Grow, and nobody can get it. They think it's Let It Grow, Let's Go, Let It Go. It's not. It's just Let Grow. And there we have, we have free materials for parents. We have 4 weeks to a Let Grow Kid that just gives you week by week a couple of different things to do. And by the end, you're amazed at how independent your kid is. And then we have these free programs for schools, the one that teaches, the one that recommends how to run a play club after school or before school. And then the Let Grow experience where kids start doing more and more on their own. And you've just renormalized what apparently is an Austin childhood as opposed to an 80s childhood. So that'd be great.
Yep. Well, and anywhere we can find you on social?
Yeah, it's all Let Grow. Just
Okay.
look for Let Grow.
It's all the same.
Yeah, Insta. I'm Free Range Kids on Twitter. Nobody's left on Twitter. That's it. We're not on TikTok yet.
That's where all the kids are. All right. Thank you so much, Lenore. It was a pleasure talking to you always. Happy holidays. I appreciate you and your work so much. And I will continue, following
Fighting the good
you
fight.
everywhere.
Right. Or just surveillance, right?
Yeah.
Just track me.
I'll continue tracking you.
Very
All
good.
right. Thank you.
Oh, I muted her. Sorry, Lenore.
She's like, bye.
It's
All
always
right.
the delicate dance. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you to my guest, Lenore Skenazy. Thank you to those of you who showed up, asked questions, made comments, contributed in the chat. Thank you to Two Way and their amazing team. Thank you to Quest for sponsoring this show. Visit questhealth.com and use the discount code REALDecember25 and get 20% off your purchase. That's questhealth.com. Code REALDecember25 for 20% off. Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you, Bridget.
Join us next Wednesday, December 10th at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you're on with us here now on this Zoom, it's the same link every time. Thanks for getting real with me, guys. I'm Bridget Phetasy. Don't forget to tip your server.